Hi, in this video, I'm going to discuss QGIS live layer effects, such as inner glow, outer glow, inner shadow, drop shadow, and others. So here I have a project open called bathymetry in QGIS, and it has a number of layers from natural Earth, each one representing a certain ocean depth, and there's also a land layer. And here I've already applied a layer effect to each one of these bathymetric layers. And what I'm going to have you do is just enable live layer effects to see the effect start taking place, and then investigate what that effect is that's causing the map to look the way it does. So I'm going to open up my layers panel, expand this so I have a little more room, and select the bottommost bathymetric layer for things less than 200 meters deep. And I'm going to expand layer rendering. And this is where I'll find the draw effects option. So I'm just going to check the box for draw effects, and you'll see something already starting to happen to the map. So all I have to do is turn effects on for each one of these. So I know it gets a little repetitive, but this it'll be fun to kind of see the map start to change as I create this. So you can see kind of a pseudo 3D effect starting to take place as I enable this effect on each one of these layers. And we're just about to the point where we've already gotten all of the deepest parts of the Atlantic represented on the map. So that is this is one use case for live layer effects. In order to see what effect is being used here, I just click the little yellow star icon off to the right, Customize Effects, and that'll bring up the effects panel. And I can see that there's an inner shadow being applied to these features. And the inner shadow it's almost the default inner shadow, but I reduced the length of the shadow, reduced the blur radius, and changed the color of it to a light gray. And you'll see that here source is also checked. So with live layer effects, source is the default symbology for that feature. So I can actually uncheck source for these, and it will just turn the symbology off and only have the effect left. So that is sometimes an option. I should also mention that inner glow, inner shadow, outer glow, and drop shadow are the default most commonly used effects. But in the effect type down below, there's a larger list. There's also blur, colorize, and transform in this list. So you can go up here and select one of these and choose a different one, such as blur, to activate. And you can activate multiple effects for a layer simultaneously. Usually it's not desirable to have too many of these going on at one time, but it is possible. And by selecting any one effect here, you get the parameters for that effect down below. So for an inner shadow, the orientation of the shadow, the azimuth, the length of the shadow, the blur radius, how smooth that shadow is, and then the color and blending modes. So there's quite a few options, and they'll vary for depending on the effect that you choose. But this is one use case for inner shadow. And now here I have another project open. So this is one that I created for the November Map Challenge last fall, and I thought it would be a fun addition to this course. So this is an attempt for me to show how close to the coast you are from almost any point in Denmark. And so I have this basically in a multi-ring buffer covering all of Denmark that shows in 5-kilometer lengths how far you are from the Danish coast. And so this is kind of a nice visualization by itself, but we can enhance this with a layer effect. And with layer effects, we can apply this here, like we were just doing with the bathymetry, to the entire layer. So I could turn on a drop shadow, for example, for the layer as a whole, and that just gives a drop shadow underneath the entire layer. It doesn't separate out the different polygons. I'm not going to choose this option. What I can also do is click on this symbol button, which is a way for it's the master symbol that I can use to affect every class in here. So I'm going to choose the master symbol layer and click on Simple Fill. And now I'm going to enable draw effects at this level. And what this is going to allow me to do when I choose drop shadow is create drop shadows between all of the different features. And this creates a pretty interesting effect. But instead of using just the default setting for this drop shadow, I'm going to adjust the drop shadow. So first off, I'm going to reduce the drop shadow all the way down to like 0.4, so just a very subtle drop shadow. I'm also going to decrease the blur radius down to 0.8. So just by reducing the length of the shadow and decreasing the blur radius, it creates a cleaner look and a better effect overall. There is some artifacts here, and I'll point out that if you were to add this to a print composition, that goes away. It's kind of a rendering artifact within the map canvas that doesn't carry through to exporting this out as an image. And just to see what happens if you play around with these, we could also try inner shadow, which creates a very strange looking map. So sometimes you need to experiment with these just to see what happens and see if there's an effect there that works for your purposes. In this case, I think the drop shadow is much more effective at kind of conveying this distance to coast that this map is supposed to portray. And so that's a quick introduction to layer effects. And again, this is going to vary with data. So you need to experiment with these, experiment with the settings on them. Sometimes try using two in parallel to get something to work, and try using them at different levels, either at the feature level or at the layer level, as we've done here. This is looking at the feature level, whereas with the bathymetry, we were doing it at the layer level.